Hello and a very good evening. You're watching The Big Picture with me, Frank Rausan Pereira. Let's talk about the Prime Minister's address to the nation today. Prime Minister Modi addressed the nation where he sent out a very clear, a loud message to everyone in the country. He requested everyone not to let their guard down. India has done a remarkable job in ensuring that COVID-19 infections and deaths have been controlled, and we can't let our guard down going forward. We need to ensure that we follow the safety protocols issued by the authorities, and that's the only way that we can fight the virus. Let's listen in first to what the Prime Minister had to say.
याद रखिए, जब तक दवाई नहीं तब तक ढिलाई नहीं। त्योहारों का समय हमारे जीवन में खुशियों का समय है, उल्लास का समय है। एक कठिन समय से निकलकर हम आगे बढ़ रहे हैं। थोड़ी सी लापरवाही हमारी गति को रोक सकती है, हमारी खुशियों को धूमिल कर सकती है। 2 गज की दूरी, समय समय पर साबुन से हाथ धुलना और मास्क लगाना, इसका ध्यान रखिए। और मैं आप सबसे करबद्ध प्रार्थना करता हूं, आपको मैं सुरक्षित देखना चाहता हूं, आपके परिवार को सुखी देना चाहता हूं। ये त्योहार आपके जीवन में उत्साह और उमंग भरे, ऐसा वातावरण चाहता हूं।
Celebrate festivals, but do not let your guard down. Follow all the safety protocols is the message that Prime Minister Narendra Modi wants to send out loud and clear. All right, in this edition of The Big Picture, then, we will talk about the Prime Minister's message and talk about what needs to be done going forward, really, as far as COVID-19 is concerned. Joining me on the program right now are Ashok Tandon, senior journalist. Also with me on the program are Jagannathan, editorial director of Swarajya magazine, and Urvashi Prasad, public policy specialist, Niti, Aayog. Thank you to all of you for joining me on this edition of The Big Picture. Mr. Tandon, I'd like to begin with you first. The message is loud and clear. This is something that the Prime Minister has been saying right from February, March earlier this year, from when the lockdown started to now. I think it was his 8th address to the nation, talking about how it is really, how we should be safe, follow all safety protocols. The message is very loud and clear.
In fact, today the Prime Minister launched a public awareness campaign. And this campaign has been launched when we are entering into the festival season. And also perhaps we may be entering into the winter season also from the point of view of weather. So it is a nationwide public awareness campaign. And that's why he has appealed to all the countrymen. And in fact, he said, I appeal to all of you with folded hands to join us in this campaign of awareness. He also appealed to the media and the social media to join in this campaign. And I know for certain that in the coming days, we will be seeing a number of celebrities from different walks of life, and also the community leaders joining in this campaign. So this campaign was very clear. The message is very clear, but it was an appeal to the countrymen, and Prime Minister listed all the achievements we have done so far and the challenges which we are facing today. And he also congratulated, gave his best wishes to the people and listed all the festivals which are coming in the next 1 month or so. So therefore, this public awareness campaign is launched today, and in that context, Prime Minister gave the statistics also. He also quoted Sant Kabir, also quoted Ramcharitmanas to make the public aware of the danger of this pandemic. As we have listened to the Prime Minister, he said that economy is coming back on rail. People are also participating in the day-to-day life, but there is no vaccine. Until the vaccine comes, we have to follow the SOPs, which are nothing more than that. We have to wear a mask, we have to wash our hands repeatedly and also maintain a social distance. So it's not a big deal which the Prime Minister is asking the countrymen to do. But the fact remains, the Prime Minister also pointed out at the pictures, the visuals, which show that a large number of people are not following these guidelines. And that is a very, very pathetic situation which we all see in the media from all parts of the country. So therefore, there is danger. And in that context, the appeal, as you said, the message is very loud and clear. And we do hope that media also will join in this campaign. And we will come out of this, as the Prime Minister said, our fatality rate is low, recovery rate is very high. So far, we have done quite a lot. Our scientists are also working very hard to produce a vaccine. And he also talked about the vaccine distribution system is in place. All these things were said, but the underlying message was that please, for God's sake, and for the sake of the safety of yourself, your family, elders, children, that we must follow all these guidelines. I think the repeated message in the coming days, which will be coming in the form of this campaign, and we do hope that all countrymen will maintain discipline and India will come out of it. I think so far we have done well, and we do hope that we will certainly come out victorious against this coronavirus.
Absolutely. Let me take this particular point forward that Mr. Tandon is making with you, Mr. Jagannathan. You know, we've done well so far. You know, many people speculated in the beginning that India is going to be worst hit. There are going to be many people who are going to die in India and so on and so forth. I think there was a Harvard study or there was an Oxford study as well which speculated that India could have up to 50 lakh cases in a day. But considering all the issues, considering, you know, the healthcare system that we have, we seem to have done well, and that's something that the Prime Minister pointed to and alluded to as well.
Yes, absolutely. I think what we've done is we have a very large, diverse country. It's a federal structure where there is a learning curve, not only at the central level, but also at the state and municipal level. So obviously, the progress through which the effort is cascaded from the center to the states to the municipal and local body level takes time. But we have done it very, very correctly and with a lot of responsibility. India was one of the few countries that actually went for a lockdown probably a bit earlier than necessary, but that was necessary to send a message. Even assuming that the lockdown came maybe a week or two earlier than needed, the fact is, how do you tell a country of 1.35 billion people that, look, people, this is serious. Don't take this casually. This is happening. So the lockdown sent a message to every single citizen that, look, you can't take this casually. We are not taking it casually, so you don't do so. And now, as the lockdown is more or less getting over and economic activity resumed, the Prime Minister felt it necessary to again reinforce the same message. Everywhere we go, we are seeing people getting a little careless, thinking it's all over. We are seeing headlines saying, oh, the positivity rate is coming down, the total number of cases is coming down. People have abandoned caution, and you can see people wearing masks, covering only their mouths or hanging somewhere near the necks. Actually, that is the whole problem. So the PM said, now you're going to get into a situation where crowds are going to assemble in temples, in public places, Diwali festival, the Eid festivity, and a little later Christmas also coming up. You're going to have a lot of people of a lot of faiths coming out in the open where they will be meeting other people. So the need for caution has actually multiplied. And he has come at the right time to say that please don't drop everything. As a responsible citizen, the government is doing what it can. We have done everything we can. We will see that you get the vaccine at the earliest. We are preparing our distribution system to see that everyone in this country gets the vaccine. But we cannot succeed if you behave irresponsibly. He didn't say that in quite the stark terms that I'm saying. But undertone is that don't mess up. Please do your duty. Then this is a PM saying, don't ask what your country can do for you, but please ask what you can do for your country, your neighbor, your friends, your family by being responsible. And that is a very important message to give at this stage, as we are on the cusp of another possible outbreak if people get careless.
Right. Absolutely. All right. So, Urvashi Prasad, let me bring you into the picture now. And let me take this particular aspect forward with you. The Prime Minister spoke about festivals. Let's not forget that the winter is around the corner as well, and it's setting in. The air quality in, in Delhi NCR and in northern India is not very good as well. Are these some things to consider and ponder about too before we see probably a next wave? So, that's why we are preparing for it well in advance.
Yeah, I think the first thing, of course, with a country like India is that, the whole country, probably doesn't see, just one wave or second wave. If you see different states, even different districts have been behaving, in a very different manner. So if we look at Delhi, for instance, Delhi has already had sort of a second wave, and now we're again seeing the cases going back up. So, this could possibly be a third wave that we see. Now, of course, the peaks in the second and third times have been much lower than the first time. So that is good. But basically, the point is that, we're going to see it panning out very differently across different states, across different districts. I think Kerala is a very good example. Kerala did very well in its first wave, and they contained it very well. But we had Onam, we had a few other factors come in, and now you see the cases are surging in Kerala again. So it's really very important that, yes, while at a national level, we have done very well in terms of cases, in terms of fatality rates, there are constantly these differences between states and districts that we need to be aware of and we need to prepare for. So I think that's really what the government is constantly keeping a lookout for, that which are the states, which are the districts, which are presently seeing a surge in cases or seeing higher than average mortality rates. So I think that is the sort of preparation we are doing. It's very much along the lines of, what the Prime Minister also spoke about, testing, continuing to ramp up testing where the positivity rate is very high, as well as fatalities, bringing that down as much as possible, ideally below 1%, and of course, as low as possible. So I think that is the focus of the government and the health system. But as he said, without the partnership of the people, these efforts will not really succeed. And also the winter months, I think, is a little uncertain for us. We don't know exactly how it will behave, and that's the nature of this virus. We do have some examples from the European Union, for instance, where cases are now rising up significantly. In fact, Spain and France now have more active cases than India. And of course, they are moving into their winter months. So we have those examples, but India is, of course, different. So we don't know, exactly how it will pan out. So yes, it is a time where we all need to exercise a lot of caution. And I think that's the message he put out very strongly today.
Absolutely. Mr. Tandon, so just an appeal from the Prime Minister is good enough, or do you believe that, the authorities need to go after those who are not following these safety protocols with an iron hand? Because, we've seen as soon as you move out of the periphery of the cities, the masks are off, there is no social distancing, none of these things are followed really.
In fact, this message is, apart from the general public, this message is also to state governments, to municipalities, and to municipal corporations, in panchayats. At the grassroots level also, we have a system in place, and therefore the responsibility of adhering to the Prime Minister's appeal also lies with the state government and all the other infrastructure we have, like panchayat, municipal corporation and municipality. So it is incumbent upon these bodies in our federal structure to not only adhere to the Prime Minister's appeal, but also put in place the mechanism, the administrative setup they have to enforce these things. It is not very difficult to enforce social distancing or mask wearing or even appealing to the people to wash their hands. But when it comes to people moving in the streets, on the roads, in markets, in shopping places, of course, some kind of enforcement will have to be done, and the responsibility would lie with the state government also. So therefore, I think the state governments are also cooperating. In fact, whatever we have achieved so far is because of the cooperation. It's a cooperative federalism we have, and so far there has not been any complaint from any civic body or even state that they have not been complying with the rules. But now a special appeal has been made. So therefore, I think the message will be going loud and clear, not only to the public, but also to state governments and municipalities and panchayat level also. And states have the mechanism to enforce law. I see on the roads of Delhi, Delhi traffic police has been, chalaning people who are not wearing masks while driving two-wheeler or three-wheeler or the private car. So that enforcement, at least, that is the minimum the state governments and the other government machinery is expected to do. But largely, ultimately, it has to be done by the public at large. People have to follow that because it is in the larger interest of the people, their own health, their family's health, and the elderly in their family. So why not, at least till the festival season, we all pledge and decide that we will not violate at least these three things and make this Prime Minister's campaign a great success. And at the end of the day, when we enter into New Year, the whole world should, in fact, be looking towards India for having successfully weathered this storm of the pandemic during the festival season and also during the winter season. So I do hope that the message would be strictly for religious places, social organizations. They all have a responsibility.
Absolutely.
And we do expect, unfortunately, somehow we see somewhere people are not adhering to these measures. And that is exactly what the Prime Minister pointed out. And he said one mistake can lead to fatality rate going up. So therefore, I think today's appeal is all sections of the society, all communities, and all regions. And therefore, we do hope. And I think it's not a very difficult thing to achieve. And therefore, let's hope that in the coming winter season as well as the festival season, Indians come out and they are remain united in following these instructions and the appeal of the Prime Minister. And we do hope that we will be fighting this pandemic and come out victorious.
Absolutely. So, Mr. Jagannathan, let's talk about the economy as well. After a crippling few months, that the lockdowns and the pandemic has caused, not just here in India, but all across the world. Are you worried at some level that, if we see a second wave, like we've seen in Europe and elsewhere, that it could further dent our economy? The IMF, of course, has said that India is going to be the fastest emerging economy in 2021. We are going to even overtake China with a growth rate of 8.8%. But with a second wave, with a strong second wave, could that be a problem?
No, I think the underlying message of the Prime Minister was not was to say that, look, we are not going to now emphasize broad spectrum lockdowns anymore, which is why he's calling people to be responsible. See, we have done that at the first stage where it was necessary to communicate the message and also to ramp up the healthcare system to meet the things. Now the healthcare system is properly primed. It can, as he talked about, say 90 lakh beds and all those things. So even if you do have a second wave, India can deal with it. So that is a message he gave. But there is no need for you to make things worse by being irresponsibly. That's the thing. So as far as the economy is concerned, I think the worst is over. September was probably the turnaround month. You've seen a lot of growth in a lot of sectors, including cars, the purchasing manufacturers index as its highest level in the last 8 years. Only services is marginally in contractional mode, but it will happen. But services tend to be high touch industries where people to people contacts are very important. So services have been a little slower to recover, especially in vulnerable sectors like tourism, travel and those kind of areas. But I think if by the next few months those do that, I think we should be in full crackling form by around the first quarter, that is January, March there. October, December will be the month where we need to get the negative rates down to -2, -3 max. I think in the second quarter, we would have probably brought it down to about 6 or 7% or maybe 10%. From 23.9% in the first quarter. In October, if you can bring it down to a very low single digits, by January, March, we can actually move to positive territory. So my guess is if we take care of the health aspects, I suspect that there will be no further lockdowns. And if there are lockdowns, it will be in micro areas like one building, one flat, one lane, not an entire town, not an entire district. So it will be micromanaged there and the harm will be minimized. So we will not see the kind of broad spectrum lockdowns that we saw in the earlier past.
Okay, points taken. Let me bring in another aspect now into the picture. All right. So, Urvashi Prasad, as far as what we've learned over the last 6 or 7 months. What is it that we've really learned? What is it that the pandemic has taught us? And how do we prepare going forward?
Yeah, I think there's obviously a lot of challenges with a public health system in a country of this kind of scale and diversity. So different states have their public health systems developed at sort of different levels of maturity. But I think that is one universal lesson that we've got, that we do need to prioritize public health. We do need to boost our investments, not just from the center but also the states. We need to boost our human resource capacity in health, because ultimately you can have a bed, you can have a ventilator, you can do all of that, but if you don't have the people to run it and you don't have trained personnel, you're going to struggle. So I think a lot of the lessons we've learned were well known to people who've been in this sector. But I think it's about now really prioritizing some of these areas. Having said that, we've also seen that when we are faced with an unprecedented crisis, and we do have governments at different levels coming together, working with private sector, working with civil society, we can actually mount a fairly decent response to what is a truly very unprecedented public health crisis. So in a short span of time, and the lockdown was very important for that, because if we just had to face this without any slowing down of our economy and of the country at large, it would have been a greater struggle. So I think there's positives as well as learnings for the future in terms of what we need to prioritize and what we need to invest in. And I think public health, prevention, behavior change, all of those come up right at top in terms of even something like hand washing. We don't need a pandemic to teach us that. We should always be prioritizing that. So I think those are some of the biggest lessons going forward.
Absolutely. Okay, time now to get quick closing comments from all my panelists for the best way forward. I've got limited time, so I'm going to ask you to be brief. Starting first with you, Mr. Tandon.
I think Prime Minister also talked about the vaccine development, which India is cooperating with the rest of the world. And this is one example where we see the entire world is united today in fighting the pandemic. And Indian scientists are in the forefront. And India itself is developing its own vaccine, and trials are going on. And Prime Minister assured the country as and when the vaccine is ready, and there is a distribution system in place, and we would be covering a whole lot of our population. So reassuring the countrymen from the point of view of vaccine, I think was a very positive thing. But at the same time, he said, till the vaccine is there, we have to maintain all these SOPs. And therefore, I think he gave a tribute to Indian scientists as well and all our health workers. So I think way forward is wait till the vaccine comes. Until then, please follow the appeal made by the Prime Minister.
Absolutely. All right, Mr. Jagannathan, if you're with us, best way forward.
Yeah. See, I think the big learning for the country in the last 7 months since COVID hit us is that livelihoods are as important as lives. Because we are a poor country, I think livelihoods can damage lives just as much as a virus can. So this is one learning, which is why we have quickly tried to turn around and start the economic activity, even though we are still losing a lot of people in terms of absolute numbers. The second thing we have realized is India cannot work on a one cap fits all kind of policy. You can't say, I'm going to do this from Delhi, and whereas each state is a different entity altogether with different strategies. Like Urvashi said, a district is quite different from the state capital, and the cities are quite different. This is an urban pandemic at this point where it spread very fast, because the 2 gaz ki duri is almost impossible in city bus transport and all that. So it's in the rural areas where you can do that. In Bombay, you can never do 2 gaz ki duri. You are actually not even 6 inch ki duri nahi rakh sakte hain. Isliye that we have to be more careful. I mean, the mask is even more important in an urban area. I think these are the learnings we have had in the last. And I think we have learned it. I think the fatigue with the lockdown is what people have become careless. The PM has therefore come to say that, look, don't get tired. This is a long fight. Don't be responsible. That's the only way we can see this through.
Absolutely. All right. And Urvashi, Prasad, close the show for us with your concluding remarks.
Yeah, so I think, it's really for every state and then even every district to sort of see where are they lagging behind in terms of testing, in terms of fatalities. We do have, as I said, some areas which do need to ramp up testing further, or which can do a better job on saving lives, especially now that we have all these months of clinical management experience. So I think that is what we need to do, have a tailored strategy going forward. And of course, people, I think the people partnership will be crucial because in something like that, just the government intervening on its own, as we know by now, is not going to be effective. So I think people, employers, I would just emphasize lastly, the employers, the government put out a set of guidelines, a few weeks back on different types of workplaces and how to, adhere to COVID safe behavior there. So it really falls, the onus falls on all of us to not really let our guard down at this point.
Absolutely. All right. On that note, then, I'll call it a wrap on this edition of The Big Picture. Thank you to all my guests for joining me on the program and putting things into perspective for us. Well, the Prime Minister's appeal or message is loud and clear. Stay safe, stay healthy, follow all the guidelines and protocols. It's as simple as wash your hands and face regularly, wear a face mask, and just do these simple things. Stay safe and keep your home and your families safe as well. With that, it's a wrap. See you again next time.